Hello and Allahu Akbar, the Baha'i greeting to all the people of the planet. Today is the 10th of December. Unfortunately, I was sick in the last few days. I had heavy duty headache, working in the basement. A few things changed. Our new flower Lisa changed it to these beautiful white orchids. It almost seems like it's alive and looks at you. Anyways, continuing that practical, an introduction to the practical religion, continuing the discussion, I thought that I should spend half an hour time, one session on the mental, physical and spiritual health, because it's one of the very important issues in the daily life, and Baha'i faith has many references to it. I think personally it is a very essential principles of being happy and happiness in the life is to have healthy body. Even if it is handicapped, if you don't have leg, still your body has to function internally. You have to feel good. And science and medicine have done really wonders in the last few centuries, but it also has caused new problems. I've written in my notes so I don't forget about it. For example, people of the past, they were not smokers, they were not alcoholic as much, they were not using cocaines and cracks and all that kind of things. The progress, the material progress also has brought these things up for us. So we have problems that we never had before, like stress and depression was not something that we had in the past. I think it's mostly because the material progress and the spiritual progress were going hand in hand. They were both primitives. And there was some kind of a balance. And that balance would have brought happiness, maybe shorter lifespan, but still happiness. And now that's kind of gone because we've progressed really a lot more materially and physically, but not as much as spiritually. Still there are ancient problem that the Romans and even before that people have, we do have carried those over with us in 21st centuries. I'll speak about those. For example, let's say talk about democracy. One of the greatest things that I want to say what democracy has done to the family later on in my topic, but democracy has created a lot of headaches in the families, because it can be defined very well as what it is. Man and women, they are both have equal right. They both want to be the head of the family. The office, the institution of family is really, there's a dispute on it always, at who is the head, or who is the final word for. And same is the problem of raising the children. Children in the democratic countries at age 15 and 16, that kids, they have to really listen a lot to their mom and dad, of course if the mom and dad are functional. And that is the really the problem. So I stressed before, and I think that today, if we own a car all the time, when we have this body with this problem that is around, I think everyone should just have a little bit of the knowledge of medicine, like a manual of health. Very basic things to know about it, and don't do the major causes of a problem can be prevented. It has to be taught in the schools everywhere. So, continuing on this, since I've witnessed this, at least 15 years I've dealt with it, many of these psychological problems that we're facing in these Western countries, they all have a spiritual basis. But spirituality is something that the psychology of today doesn't accept. And I've given the example that I have a psychological problem. I go to my psychologist, and as I'm talking to him about my problem, he goes back, turned away from me, and he looks at my dog, and I start to talk to my dog, and he wants to fix my dog. How absurd and awkward is this example? But that is the reality. What I mean by that is that the problem I have is a spiritual, But these guys, they don't know this spirit. They think it's all in the brain. That's who we are. And especially we are one of the animals. So they look at me as another dog and they want to balance me out. So how difficult it is when the very fundamental flaw is there in even dealing with a person and this problem. So because of this balance between economical progress and the spiritual progress is gone, this has created a lot of problem for us. It is not about wealth, it's about progress. Like the poorest man in Western countries, they all have cell phone. As I said before, a king in Europe wouldn't have that. TVs, I don't know, camera, talk about all kind of things. But we ordinary people, nobodies, we have that, and the kings, they were bereft of it a few centuries ago. And have we gone up anything spiritually any better? No. We're not even better parents, we're not even better children, we're not better friends. It's just all we look at is material, and that is the causes of the problem. I mean, how long a person can go on, feeling, envious and jealous of something that he or she doesn't have it. At one point he loses his balance and then it becomes sick. That's what basically, to me, it is. Anyways, Baha'u'llah, His Divine Majesty, Baha'u'llah, the source, the infinite source of kindness, this amazing figure who walked on the planet, he calls himself divine physicians. This is the phrase he uses many, many times. And he says the world is sick. And many, many peoples, and the terms in the forms of competitions or teachers or doctors or politicians or philosophers, they are, creating an abstractions for people to understand who the real divine physician is, which is him. So there are many, many diagnostic that Baha'u'llah has made about today's society as a whole and the individuals. I'm going to mention a few of them. Many of you do know the problem with religious sickness, they call it right now. What an amazing problem is this today's. When you look at these religious people, I mean, let's bring some names. Let's talk about the most famous one of them, Mr. Bin Laden. This man is an example of what Jesus Christ in the Bible says, that for the wealthy to pass through the eye of the needle, if a camel, it says, pass through the eye of the needle, a wealthy rich man can go to the heaven. This man, in my opinion, physically, he has made an attempt to really pass the, eye of the needle, because he has left all his life, all his money, everything, kingdom, going to the cave on a big, huge grudge against the Western civilizations, because he thinks those guys should not be in his country and whatnot. I mean, how far can you go? They train to sacrifice their physical life for what they think is the betterment for the people, or what the truth is. But me and you and many, many people, they know that this efforts, these endeavors by these people is totally negative. It has no positive effect. There are fundamental flaws in the philosophy. To say that people of the West and the East, Christians or white or others, are not covered under the umbrella of Allah, which means God. How could anybody to come up on behalf of God to say that people are, those are white people and these are black people and they are Indians, and just based on the color, the superficial things, which is a part of the beauty of us, to look at those things and classifies people. I've always said that if you look at the foods, any food, it has a label. So and so times you could eat this food, and after that the expiry date is gone, you can't have it. Well, in most of the holy books, including Quran, it says the religion of God, the revelation of God, is really a divine food. It's the food for thought. That's what we eat to mentally grow, to spiritually grow. But it has an expiry date on it. Christianity is over at 1844. Islam is over in 1260 of lunar year, equal to 1844. The date is expired. Now, if you go to eat, this is spiritual food nevertheless, but it's expired. Take a food out of just like a food outside of the fridge. What's going to happen if somebody eats some meat that's expired? He's going to get sick, physically. If you do the spiritual food of God, nonetheless, if it's expired and you eat it, you're going to get sick. You will have a mental sickness and create conundrum for yourself and the society and all that. And Baha'u'llah's diagnostically, he has a diagnostics, and he says that this is where the sickness comes, because you guys are unable to convince each other. Muslims after 1,000 years cannot convince the Christians to become Muslim. Christian 2,000 years couldn't convince even the Jews to turn into Christianity. So is the Hindus, so is the Buddhists. After a couple thousand years, few centuries, few thousand years past, millennium past, and you guys reaching to the point that your 4 or 5 of you are out there and you don't get along. So what do? Your followers read these books by the sick leaders, because they're eating this food, and then they create sick followers and they kill each other. So what does Baha'u'llah say for that? He says many things. First of all, he warns us, and he says the foundations of all the religions are one, because they're all connected together. He says it's a school. Adam was grade 1, Noah, Abraham, Jesus, Moses. It's all, school time. The school is finished, Now the time has come, mankind is being grown up. It has to be united. If you look at it, every one of these teachers that they came, they told us the truth of the time that we needed it. So how do we go about it? Baha'u'llah says,